Hey everyone, James Niggemeyer here. Thank you for tuning back into the YouTube channel. Today I want to talk about the importance of presentation. Presentation is such a key to getting bites, particularly this time of year, because we're going to get into the spawn, and those bass, when they move towards the beds, their strike window a lot of times, more times than not, is going to be relegated to that specific zone. And you have to place that bait within a very close proximity to that zone, whether you visually see the bass or not. So presentation is just key. And a lot of times in the springtime, when the fish are getting ready to move onto the beds, or they're just in the area where spawning activity will eventually take place, the key is presenting the bait in a close proximity to where the fish are going to spawn. And one of the reasons for that is because when they first pull into these spawning areas, they may be waiting for the water temperature to get right. And the reality is we really don't know what triggers that spawn. We think water temperature, we think length of days, we think of, full moon. And I think all those things are factors, but when they finally go to spawn, we don't really know what exactly triggers that to happen. Before they move to the spawn, they're gonna be in an area and exhibit some territorial behavior that can actually translate into bites, whether or not they're feeding. They'll move into an area that kind of is the zone that they wanna be in, and so a presentation that's close to those areas is just key. So good casts are really important during the pre-spawn and spawn, because sometimes they're going to move up into those shallows and they're going to relate to those hard targets, the wood and the rock, or it could be anything. It could be a T-post in the water. It could be any number of things, but they're going to pull up near an object, an ambush spot. And it's key to be able to place that bait in and around and near an object, or where you believe there's going to be some sort of fish set up. And that might be reeds, that might be hay grass, that might be some type of vegetation, whether it's milfoil or hydrilla or different things like that. So being able to place your lure where you want it, where you believe a fish to be, is going to be key. That's number one, placing the lure in there. Number two, placing in the lure there without much of a splash is another big thing. Being able to put the lure in that spot as subtly as possible is going to be key, because they're in shallower water, so their ceiling or their roof is a whole lot closer to them than if they were 6, 8, 10, 12 feet of water. So you need to place the lure in the position, but also put it in there, lay it in there subtly, softly, so it's not like you're throwing rocks at them. You want to place that lure, that presentation, right near where they are, as subtly as you can, and sometimes beyond the target. So if you feel like there's a fish right there, then you want to kind of throw it just a little bit past, maybe a foot, 2, 3 feet past it, and then bring that lure past that position or point. Because what's natural is something comes by them and they just attack it, they ambush it. What's not natural more times than not is something lands right over top of them like a hamburger from the sky. It just doesn't typically work that way. The only other time that really works that way, and I think the big part of the reason it works that way, is when you're flipping a bait to some type of cover. Because when you're flipping a bait, a soft plastic or a jig, you can put that lure softly into the water, very little ripple. It's way more natural that they perceive, they didn't see something come into their zone. But when you have a splash, that alerts them that something fell into the water, and that splash is not as natural unless the fish is really aggressive. So take these things into consideration. The springtime, I feel like, is the time of year when presentations are so important. Work on your presentations, place your baits in an area where you believe a fish to be, place the baits subtly, softly, gently into the water, and then just a hair bit past their target. Now, don't get me wrong, sometimes you hit the water and it's a swirl and you've got them. And I think that happens more often than not when those fish pull up to spawn. But as a whole, I wanna throw my bait a little bit past the target, the place where I believe a fish to be, and then bring it back. I just wanted to share some of those things. Had a guide trip yesterday, thought about the importance of presentation, presenting your bait in a manner that generates the maximum number of bites. Hopefully you guys are getting out there. It's getting nice and warm. It was like 86 yesterday here in Northeast Texas. Fish are on beds, and I think there's more to come. We're on a full moon. It's kind of like the perfect time, but today we have like 35-mile-an-hour winds. A little bit rough to get out there, but wanted to share that with you guys. Hopefully you guys got something out of this video. If you did, please give me a thumbs up. And if you haven't already subscribed, please subscribe to the channel. Be sure to check out my merch, Team Niggemeyer Fishing. I'll leave a link in the description. Until next time, thanks for watching and good fishing.